Before we get started, CIPS Saskatchewan recognizes all IT professionals in the province of Saskatchewan, and as such, we'd like to acknowledge that Saskatchewan sits on the traditional lands of the peoples of the treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. These are the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Nakota, Dakota, Lakota, Dene, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. For our guests today who are unaware of what CIPS is, the Canadian Information Processing Society is Canada's IT professional association with the goal of promoting IT professionalism within the IT industry. CIPS promotes 3 professional designations: the Information Systems Professional, or ISP, which is the only government-recognized IT professional designation in Canada; the IT Certified Professional, or ITCP, which is the only internationally recognized IT professional designation; and our Associate IT Professional, or AITP designation, which is awarded to students who graduate from a CIPS accredited post-secondary institution. If you'd like to learn more information about CIPS, our accreditations, and our designations, I encourage you to go to our website at www.cips.ca. We couldn't put on these presentations if it wasn't for the gracious donations of our sponsors. And at this time, I'd like to recognize our platinum sponsor, SaskTel. SaskTel has been a platinum sponsor for over 10 years. And we'd like to also further recognize the hard work and dedication of our volunteers and staff. Today's presenter is Trish Bishop. She is a Director of Professional Services with Horizon Computer Solutions. She holds her MOP, PMP, ProSci, and IDLE. And if I missed any of these, please correct me, Trish. After launching and taking a public one of the first ISP providers in Canada, Trish quickly found her niche as a translator and her exceptional ability to translate business needs to solutions. Throughout her career, Trish has developed 6 high-performance teams and launched 5 project management offices is passionate about the transformation of corporate cultures one leader at a time. Trish's team at Horizon has developed the Cyber Incident Response Playbook, and we are excited to share it with organizations to ensure that they feel confident and ready to respond in the case of a cyber event. Today's presentation is going to be on the Cyber Incident Response Playbook webinar. Cyber readiness is a 60-40 equation: 60% protection, 40% knowing how to respond. 95% of cybersecurity breaches are a result of human error. 71% of users take risky actions, and 96 of those also do so knowingly. So without further ado, Trish.
Thanks, Thomas, and I appreciate everybody on the CIPS team, CIPS Canada and CIPS Saskatchewan. You've been fantastic to work with in putting this presentation together. Very, very easy and super supportive. So I really appreciate everybody jumping in to make this happen. And thank you to everybody who's here today, who's taken the time to come and join us over, for some of you, lunch hour. For others, it may be during a busy day. So we really appreciate you coming. For those of you who may be joining as we go along, no worries. This is going to be recorded, so it'll be available after the fact for you to go back in case there's anything that you missed. So let's dive in. We've got a lot of information to cover. First of all, we are kind of curious as to why you decided to join today. It helps us to kind of get a good understanding of what interested you, what piqued you in terms of actually clicking the registration button. So Maria, if I can get you to kind of launch our first word cloud poll, this will come up on your screen, and you can submit a word on the poll. Let's see if it's coming up here. Is it launching? If it's not, that's okay. You know what? Here's what we can do. Just chuck it in the chat. Oh, no, there we go. Here we go. By the way, everything you submit through the polls today is anonymous. Okay, so just a heads up on that. So if you want to just put one word in to the response, yeah, it's showing up, Maria. It's great. If you want to put one word into the response for the window that just popped up for you to let us know why you chose to join us today, that would be great. Okay, I see a few coming up: curious, knowledge, education, interested, Trish is awesome. Curious. I love it. Learn, awareness, cybersecurity, curious, growth. Yep. These are great. Okay. Give another few seconds. Perspective. Yep. Great. Thank you so much for those of you who submit that in. That's awesome for us to have a good sense of what brought you here today. So I'm going to move on. We'll leave that poll open for a few minutes, but we'll close it here in a minute. Just helps us to really get a good handle on where you are. So thank you for that. Okay, so as Thomas mentioned at the beginning, we're gonna, if you can post your questions in the chat, because sometimes the question comes to you, you don't want to forget it. You know, you can by all means write it down, but if you want to chuck it in the chat, Thomas and the teams are going to be monitoring that, and they will be capturing those for when we get to the end, so that we can go through the questions that come up at the end of the presentation. It just makes sure that everybody can get all of the content as we move through. Okay, perfect. So the problem that we're facing, and Thomas spoke to this, so I'm going to go through these next couple of slides pretty quickly. But the biggest issue that we have is that we can put a lot of effort, knowledge, experience, hardware, software, solutions in place to be as cyber safe as we can make our organization and our network. And yet, 95% of the cybersecurity breaches that we see are caused by human error. That's the issue that we have. And then when you take that to the next level, this was Proofpoint, the 2024 State of the Fish report. 71% of users took a risky action. And the scary part of that is 96% of them knew they were doing that. So it's not even like they don't know that they were taking a risky action. They actually knew they were taking the risky action. So all of these things that we can put into place to try to make sure that we're keeping it safe are all of a sudden causing, you know, we have now this human element that we can't control that is basically putting us at risk at the end of the day. I'm hearing myself in duplicate there. I don't know if there's something that's happening there, but just a heads up for everybody, if it feels like I'm kind of coming in like a little bit of an alien, that would be why. So like I said, Thomas did speak to this, so I'm not going to stay on these slides for very long. So here's where we are. The ransomware or whatever the cyber attack is, it's hit. Okay, we're there. There is nothing you can do at this point to prevent it from happening. Okay, all you can do at this point is be prepared for what is your very next step. And that's what the whole of this presentation is going to be about. I will say we're going to share a lot of information. So you can either take it all in and just really kind of pay attention to what I'm saying, and then use the recording as a reference that you can go back to get the details, take notes, whatever it is you want to do to facilitate your learning. But I'm going to be sharing a lot of information tactically that you can use within your organization starting today. So there's lots of value in here for you to take away and look to implement. And some of these things are very easy to implement that you can start right away. So just an awareness that there's going to be a lot of content in here that you're going to be able to use, and that's very, very tactical for you. So the attack is hit. Now, what we hear from organizations that did not have a cyber incident playbook, and one of the reasons we built this playbook is that Horizon has been brought in on a number of remediation projects where a client's been hit, or you know, an organization has reached out to us. They've been hit. Now they need to figure out what to do next. What we're sharing today is not the IT response. This is not your disaster recovery response. It's not what your IT team is going to do. This is 100% business side focused on what you're going to do next in terms of how you're engaging with staff and your customers and all of that kind of thing. So we put this together because we were hearing from these organizations that would reach out to us for remediation, all of the things I'm going to share with you in the next few slides that were getting in the way of their ability to effectively get to remediation. Okay. The other stat that I don't have on a slide here that I just want you to really think about is that 72% of Canadian small and medium-sized businesses have been hit by some form of cyber attack in the last 2 years. So the chances of you not being hit in some way, shape, or form, and some of you may be large enterprise, fair enough. My numbers are small and medium-sized business. the probability of that happening is very, very high. So being ready and having that playbook ready to respond is super, super important. So here's what we heard from those customers or experienced with them side by side as we were helping them to respond to their cyber attack. Number one, it took days for us to figure out who was responsible for key decisions. This was a huge issue because if you don't have the roles for the incident response team clarified, where you know who's playing what role, and that each of those people understand what that role means and how those roles intersect, you run into a lot of issues with personalities, political jockeying, egos, people who want to step into that leadership position, even if they're not necessarily the right person with the right skills for a particular position. And so there's a lot of this that goes on, and people are tripping over themselves for days in some instances, trying to figure out who needs to make the decision. The other side of the coin is people not wanting to take ownership for a decision. And so everybody's kind of deflecting and just not making the decision. So it's really, really important to have those roles, and we'll go through them today, those roles identified, and ensure that each person who's responsible for that role knows what their responsibility is within that role. So I've seen it time and time again as a project manager where you can really get caught up in getting stuck in this piece. The next thing that we saw was total chaos with people who believe they know, and in their mind, they're doing the right thing. Nobody's doing this to be difficult. Everybody's trying to do the right thing. You've got a lot of adrenaline. You've got a lot of chaos. You've got things moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Every second, literally, some new thing is showing up that needs to be dealt with. So you'll have people who just want to step into the fray and help, right? These firefighters, they have that firefighter mentality where they really want to just jump in and get it done. So what ends up happening in that case is, again, without having role clarity, you have a bunch of people who have run off. They're all doing things, and in many cases, they're doing the same thing in different ways. And therefore, they're actually getting in each other's way and getting in the way of being able to move forward with effective remediation. So that was another thing that we heard and saw consistently. The next one is we don't have personal contact information for our staff and no truly effective communication channel to communicate with them effectively. So they're needing now to get in touch with their staff, and there's no way to do it. Your system's down. You're not jumping on Teams. You're not sending them an email via the corporate email address. How are you connecting with your team? So making sure that your incident response team has a communication channel and method, and that you have some communication channel and the contact information for your staff in an offline capability, and that staff know how you're going to get in touch with them so they understand how you're going to communicate information and when they can expect updates. So that was another piece that was a really big issue, because of course, when staff don't know what's happening, now you have a whole other set of problems where people are kind of, again, contributing to that chaos. They're freaking out. They don't know what's going on. They're asking, they're getting in the way because people are naturally curious, right? So they're getting in the way of people who are trying to get things done because they're trying to understand what's happening. The better that you can communicate with all of your stakeholders, including and primarily staff, the better you're able to make sure that people are doing what you need them to be doing, and that they aren't off focusing on things that they shouldn't be doing or getting in the way of people who are focused on getting things done. The next one we heard was we didn't have access to contact information for clients or key vendors. This was also a huge issue. So I know I asked my sales team, I said, okay, so if we have a cyber attack today, how are you getting access to your client data? Oh, I'm just going to jump on the CRM. Nope, you're not. The system's down. So everybody is so dependent on these systems and having access to these systems that they don't think about what it's going to mean to not have access to the system. Now, we've all experienced power outages, right? Where there's no power, no access to your systems, but there's no access to anything. Like everything's shut down. So it's like, okay, well, there's nothing we can do. In the case of a cyber event, you do still have power, and you have the capability to be able to do things on a clean device, for example. So, I have my iPhone is connected to the Horizon network. My iPad has never been connected to the network. So if I have been given the authorization by our IT team to be able to connect to some of our SaaS solutions, our like an offline solution by a third party. I can't think of the SaaS right up. Software as a service. Sorry, the acronym wasn't coming off the top of my head, but a software as a service. So if I've been given the okay by our IT team to access that, I can do that on a clean device and I can then access information potentially. However, the better solution is that we have put something in place to make sure we have that contact information. So are you exporting a report once a month, for example, with your client and key vendor information that can then be sent to designated home or personal email addresses for key people in the company, or put in an offline Dropbox or whatever kind of offline storage you want to have it in that is secure in terms of keeping that information. So putting some pieces in place that can really help to make sure you have access so you can contact your clients and key vendors in the case of an event. The next one is we were so focused on the minute-by-minute crisis, we had no time to focus on what areas of the business we could continue operating, resulting in lost revenue. So have you taken a look at your organization as a whole and said, okay, what parts of the business could continue to function, right? So for us at Horizon, we have a retail store. For those of you who know of us in Saskatoon, we have a retail store. Well, the retail store can actually keep functioning. It'll be a little bit different. They probably can't use our point of sale service because that's connected to our network, but we can just bring in cash and we can do cash business in the interim until we're back up and running. So what parts of the business can continue to operate? And then do you have the business continuity plan in place that will facilitate getting up and running quickly so you can continue to generate revenue while the system is or the network is down? Okay, so that's another one that came up consistently. Again, following on that with no business continuity plan in place, it was difficult and time consuming to shift to doing work offline. So if you do have the plan in place, you might be able to get up and running in 2 hours. If you don't have a plan in place, it could take days for people to figure out, how do we get this sorted? How do we create a physical form that someone can, fill out for orders or whatever your business is, and however you might be able to continue doing business offline. We lost days just getting organized. This is the biggest one that we hear consistently, is it took us too many days to just get organized. So all of those things that I've just talked about all contribute to that, but people have lost days. So with what we're going to be sharing with you here today, our goal is we would actually like to see you up and running within 1 hour of an event happening, right? To be able to address all of these pieces. All right, so that's the problem. Now let's move into the solution. So the first thing that I want to share with regards to this is the Cyber Incident Response Playbook that Horizon has developed. We have specifically created this to be an easy lift. So as a project manager for more than 30 years, I have been involved with organizations who have tried to put things like this together, and they over-architect it, they overthink it, they try to think of every single possible permutation of what could happen. It becomes such a heavy load that there's two issues with creating a playbook of this nature. The first is it almost never gets done because it's just people are overthinking it and over-architecting it. The second is that even when it does get done, it's so heavy and complicated and detailed that keeping it up to date over time makes it's very difficult to do that. So either you don't get it done, or you do get it done, but it's not kept up to date because it's just too much of a heavy lift. People don't have time for that. So ours is built specifically to be an easy lift. It's enough to get you going in that first hour. That's our goal, right? We're not trying to answer all the world's problems or all of the questions or all the permutations of what possibly could come up. We are trying to make sure that people know what they need to do, that they're clear on their roles and responsibilities, and that they can get running as quickly as possible. Okay, so the playbook objectives, the first one is, as I mentioned, let's get organized and ready, and we want to be able to hit the ground running within 1 hour. The second is we want a clear set of tasks. So what exactly, step by step by step, are we doing, and in what order are we doing them? And then the third is clear roles and responsibilities. Who is doing what, and making sure that they understand what their roles and responsibilities are, what everybody else is doing on the team, and so that they can really see how are these roles intersecting and how are they going to work together to make sure that everybody is kept up to date. So those are the playbook objectives. Now, when we moved into the elements of the playbook. The first is we have the Cyber Readiness Maturity Assessment, and big thank you to those of you who have already submitted this in. This is a complimentary. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But even if you go to the Cyber Maturity Assessment, and I know that link is going to be put in the chat here, I do encourage you to go to the link, even if you don't fill it out, which is totally fine. If you just read it, there are elements in there that you can now take back to your organization to say, hey, do we have this in place? Have we done this? And that will help to inform and start conversations to help you increase your cyber readiness within your organization. So there's information in there that is of value to you, even if you don't submit the maturity assessment. If you do, you'll get a score back in a report that gives you some additional things that you can consider in order to help increase that maturity level within your organization. So that's the first one. The next one is the playbook itself, and we'll go through that here as we move along. There are a number of templates that are part of the playbook, and then we have the incident response team checklist. I'm going to get into all of these in detail here and now. So the maturity assessment, as I mentioned, complimentary. It's done through an online form. We will get back to you, I think it's within 2 business days, with your report. So again, if you just go and view the assessment, there's information there that has value to you for tactical things that you can implement with in your organization. If you do get the report, there will be just some more in there in the report that will help you to understand how you can increase the maturity level of your organization for cyber readiness. So what we're looking for is, what can you implement today, right? And again, that's an easy lift. We don't want this to be a big, complicated, difficult thing. Some things are technical, and yeah, they're going to be a bigger lift for sure. But ultimately, what other things can you put in place to help increase your level of readiness? The next piece, and we're going to do a quick poll here. So this is going to be our second poll, the Cyber Incident Response Playbook. So what we're wondering is how many of you now do have some form of a cyber response playbook? So we'll just wait while Maria puts that up. There we go. Awesome, thank you. So if you can just select yes or no and let us know if you have a cyber playbook in place. Okay, we've got 17 responses. This is great. Look at this. Hopefully you guys should all be able to see those responses in there. So like 75%. Yeah, so we've got 20 responses right now, which is awesome. Thank you so much for that. 75% do have some kind of playbook in place, which is amazing. And then 25% don't. Moving a little bit, 67-33. So this is good. Even if your playbook's not perfect, it doesn't matter. You have something, right? It's better to have something and be ready than have nothing in place whatsoever. So yay, great job to all of you who have something in place. That's amazing. All right, okay. I'm going to keep trucking here. Okay, so, and thank you for that, Maria, I appreciate it. So the contents of the cyber playbook itself, we do have an actual binder. I'm going to just hang on. I'm just going to move this so we've done it in PowerPoint, right? So there's you'll create an actual binder within your organization. We don't create the binder for you, but we do have a PowerPoint you can print out. We've put everything in like plastic sleeves, right? So it makes it really easy and to, pull it out, put it up on the wall, whatever you have to do when the event actually occurs. So there's some pages that have, for example, an org chart so that you can just pull it out once your org chart is done, specific to your organization, pull it out, put it up on the wall. Paint-friendly tape. I have a roll of that too. And then, when people come into the project room, which is also part of what you'll set up, is a project room that's going to be dedicated. So all the members of the incident response team know, here's where I'm going. And somebody's going to grab the cyber response kit and bring it into the room. The kit will include, this is no different. If everybody's done workshops, this is no different than a workshop kit. So it's going to have the binder, okay, or 2 binders. Some people have multiple binders. That's great. So it'll have the binder. It will also have legal pads, pens, markers, sticky notes, paint-friendly tape. All of those things will be in that cyber response kit. You're going back old school. You can't get on the network. So you literally have to write things down, cross them out, put sticky notes up, whatever it is that you're doing to help the team stay on track throughout the remediation process in terms of the incident response team. So getting that response kit and what needs to be in that. So that's all tactical stuff you can do right now. If you have not, even if you don't have a binder, or a playbook, you can create that cyber response kit just by putting in those pens, those papers, those markers, all those things. Just put them in a kit somewhere, mark the box, and put it somewhere where it's easy to see for everybody so they know where to get it. All right, so that's your cyber response kit. A communications plan. So again, a light touch. If any of you are a project manager or a change manager, I know I have done some very extensive communication plans. This is very light. In essence, what we're looking for is first and foremost, you need to define your audiences. And this is an effort, right? So you need to really sit with the right stakeholders. Who are our audiences? Who do we need to communicate with? And really going through what that looks like. So if you think about staff, you can say, oh, well, we just communicate with our staff. Okay, well, I know at Horizon, for example, we have full-time staff, we have part-time staff. We have what we call corporate staff, and then we have retail staff. Okay, then we have some staff who are in the Philippines. Then we have some staff who are subcontractors. They're not full-time employees. So we have a mix of staff. So can we send the same message to everybody? Or if, for example, you have a union in your organization, it may be that you have to splice out specific audiences and communicate with them in a unique way based on the audience. So you have to define your internal audiences, and then you have to define your external audiences. And that's where you want to be as thorough as possible in thinking through who are all of the stakeholder groups that we need to communicate with. Our clients, our vendors, our partners, whoever it is. I mean, police, the bank, like there's all of these people, insurance companies, all of these people that you're going to need to communicate with. What does that communications plan look like? The playbook also includes who do you contact and in what order, right? So who do you contact first and second and third and fourth, and making sure that you're working with your legal advisor to help you to determine who you're going to contact next, right? In your province, are you required to report a cyber event? So we have clients in some provinces where it's not required to be reported to police, and they chose not to, right? So it's not in public record. So they chose not to report it, and it's not required for them to do so. I think in other provinces it might be. So knowing the legislation within your own province as to what the requirements are there and what decision your organization is going to make based on legal guidance. So always make sure that you're engaging your lawyer or whoever you're working with in that capacity to provide the best advice on who to contact and again, in what order. So we provide that included in our recommendations. Because of course, the first person you want to reach out to is your IT team, right? Whether it's a managed services provider or internal, your IT team has to know first that something's happened. So really putting those pieces in order. So that communications plan is a big part of putting that together. Then we look at who is sending what message and how, right? So, we don't have access to our systems. So how are we sending these messages out to our staff, to our customers, to, all these various stakeholder audiences? Are we contacting them directly? Are we doing it through social media? Like, what are the mechanisms that we're using to communicate? So really helping to build that out in a very simplified communications template. So that's the communications plan. That's part of the playbook. The financial impact use case. Now, this isn't something that you're going to use as a step-by-step when the event happens, okay? The purpose of having this in the playbook is for now. What we want to do is make sure that your key leadership team members, like your managers and your finance team, get over their sticker shock now. So after the event happens, when frustration is high and adrenaline is high and everybody's running around, in a state of chaos, that's not the time to be getting sticker shock. Okay. So we just provide some templates and examples that you can enter your own kind of information into that will help give you a bit of a sense of, wow, this is what this potentially could cost us. So that there's no sticker shock impact in the moment. Everybody's expecting, okay, this thing's going to cost us $500,000. Just get over it and move on. And let's get this done, or whatever the number is. And that's not even including your ransomware. That's just in, the things that you need to do to get into remediation. So really getting past that sticker shock now is super important, because in the moment after the event has occurred, you don't want people freaking out. Oh my gosh, we can't pay that. You don't have time for that. You don't have time for, getting the best price and negotiating with your vendor. It's like, We need it and we need it now, just buy it. So that's kind of the mode that you need to be in. And what we don't want is adding to that chaos and freak out by people if they aren't aware in advance of what those potential financial impacts are going to be. So that's the purpose of having it in the playbook. When we do the printed version of the playbook, we take that out. Like, that's not included in what you would print out to put in your actual binder, but it is part of the exercise we want you to go through in your organization so that you understand what you're expecting to see should something happen. Okay. Excuse me for a moment. Okay. Templates. So we have a number of templates that are included. Okay. So the staff communication template, this, the template, and remember, when I say template, I mean template. So the idea here is you would take it and massage it and make it be what it needs to be, so it matches your corporate culture, your branding, all of that other kind of stuff. The communications template it should be sent out to all staff. Like, once you have your plan in place and you know, here's how we're going to communicate with staff. Here's the frequency that we're going to communicate. You know, we're going to contact everybody on Signal or WhatsApp or whatever the mechanism is that you're going to use to communicate with staff. You're going to include that in this staff communication so that staff know, okay, if a cyber event were to happen, here's where I'm going to get information. Here's how often I can expect to hear from the organization. And here's where I go with questions like, okay, I'm working from home. Am I still getting paid? Like, you know, and these are all HR questions that are going to come up and that type of thing. And again, that gets addressed by the HR lead. So, you know, really just putting those pieces together so they know, first and foremost, what is the first thing to do, or more specifically, not do, right? So things have changed over time. It used to be, in some instances, that when there was a cyber event, the first thing you did was just unplug it, like unplug it, shut it down, you know, make it stop. Excuse me. Now it's actually very, very different. It's particularly if you have cyber insurance and you're going to be using that cyber insurance. The one thing that you want to make sure that you're doing is understanding the second that event occurs, you're on a crime scene. And if you've ever watched any crime shows, don't touch the scene. So don't shut it down, don't unplug it. If you unplug some things, you can lose the logs, which will help for the forensic investigator to understand what actually happened. So you don't want to put your cyber insurance at risk by potentially unplugging something or whatever else. So those first steps are put into that staff communication. They're in that template. And then you can adjust it based on how you're going to choose specifically to communicate with your staff and things of that nature. So that's the communication template. Again, this is one of those tactical things you can put in place right now. The other piece with this template that I recommend is when you send it out, and in the template itself, it says, please send to your personal email address. So if something happens, they have access to the information in the template in their personal email address. We also recommend that you include it as part of your HR onboarding. So as you have new employees come on, they receive this as part of their onboarding package, so they know what to do, and all staff are kept up to date on the cyber response expectations. The roles and responsibilities templates, I'm going to go through those in a few minutes, so I'm going to actually move past this one right now. We will move on to the password and MFA policy templates, only if you don't have them in place now. If you have them in place now, that's awesome. The templates are there. You can reference them for more information. If you want that you may not have included in your policy that might tighten your policy up a little bit, you can use it or not as you need to. But if companies don't already have a password and MFA policy in place, we definitely recommend getting that put in as soon as possible. Business continuity plan template. So if you have not stepped into business continuity in your organization, and we're finding more and more that companies have engaged, a consulting firm to help them to build this, which all business continuity plans are super, super important. This template, again, it's an easy lift. It's a light touch. So it's enough to be able to help you to understand, hey, here's what we would need to do. And then, but it's not so deep and so complicated that it never gets done, and or it's too difficult to maintain and keep up to date. So it's a very light template. If it's of use to your organization, then it's great for you to be able to do that. And I'm sure you can even pull them off of, you can just go out on the internet and grab templates of this nature as well. So, there's nothing proprietary about a business continuity plan template. But definitely you're going to want to take a good look at the organization and say, hey, what parts of our organization could continue to do business? And then put at least a high-level business continuity plan in place for those aspects of the business. The incident response team checklist. Now, in the playbook itself, so if you'll see my playbook, I have tabs, these little tabs. See the red and the blue and the green tabs. Hopefully you can see that. Those all are for specific action item pages in the playbook. So those are pages that I'm going to quickly reference when when the incident response team, the events happen, the incident response team goes to the project room, brings in the cyber response kit, pulls the binder out. I'm going to those tabbed pages, and as a team, we're working through and making sure, okay, is this information up to date? Is this everything that we need here? Is this information correct? Are we good to go? Are those the communications channels? Yep, okay, boom, we're off to the races, okay? What the incident response team checklist is, it's a one-pager that covers all of those tabbed pages, okay? So it's just a cheat sheet. That's basically what it is. But it just helps to get everybody's head in the game quickly. You can put it up on the wall again, easy for people to reference. But ultimately, it's referencing all those action item pages in the playbook itself. Okay, so the cyber incident response team. So we're going to go through some of these pieces here. Now, the incident response manager role. Now, keep in mind, your organization, if it's smaller, so we've done this with some organizations that have like 5, 7 people, you might collapse some of these roles. So this is in an ideal world. In an ideal world, if your organization is big enough, you should be able to accommodate each of these roles. But if not, it's totally okay. You can collapse these roles. In addition, you can also have the same person play multiple roles. Okay, so if your organization is smaller, this still applies. Don't go, oh, I don't have even enough people for those roles, Trish. What are you talking about? The same person can play multiple roles. So just keep that in mind as I'm going through the following examples. So the incident response manager role is a key role that kind of sits at the top of everything. I don't have the org chart here in this deck, but when you build the org chart, they're really going to sit in the center of everything. They have to be the person who's aware of everything that's happening. Now, they will often work with an incident response coordinator who is kind of boots on the ground, following up with people. Hey, communications lead, did you send those communications out to the staff today? Yeah, we did. Okay, we're good to go. Boom, awesome. So the coordinator role, if you have a resource available to help with it, is boots on the ground, checking in with people, making sure that everything that needs to get done is getting done, including potentially feeding the people in the room. Because for the first week, it's sometimes 12, 15, 16-hour days. And you need to make sure everybody's getting fed. That could even be the coordinator role, or you might have another resource, whatever. But you need to make sure people are getting fed. So keep that in mind. So that incident response manager is like the core, think of it as the project manager. And then you have a coordinator role, if you can accommodate it, who's going to really kind of be out there following up and making sure that all of the tasks that are needing to happen are happening, and then feeding that information back to the incident response manager. The communication is critical. When that incident response team comes together, they will set up a cadence for how often they will meet. I recommend every 15 to 30 minutes in the first couple of days, because information is moving so quickly. And the last thing you want is somebody going off on their own because they're not kept up to date and starting to go down a trail of where they shouldn't be. and then nobody knows that they're actually doing that. And things can get completely derailed. You need to keep people up to date, and all team members need to be part of those update meetings. You can't miss those meetings. They're super, super critical. Also, if you can accommodate it, you're going to want to have a backup for each of these roles as well. Just a heads up, if you have enough resources in your organization. The next role is the technical lead role. So as I said, all of these roles, with the exception of this one role, are business side, right? This is a business side response playbook. The IT team has their own playbook. They've got their disaster recovery. They've got a whole bunch of things that they're doing on their side, on the technical side. The technical lead role is that interface. So they are over here actively working with the IT team, whether it's inside, outside the organization, doesn't matter. They're actively involved in everything's happening on the technical side, but they're also interfacing on this incident response team so that the business side understands what's happening minute to minute in those update meetings from a technical point of view, because they could have impacts on decisions that are being made on the business side, could have impacts on what's being communicated out, could have impacts on what parts of the business continuity can be lit up. Hey, you guys can get onto these 3 SaaS systems. We've confirmed they're clean. You're good to go. Bonus. Those kinds of things are happening on the regular with regards to the technical lead. The next role is the financial officer role. So I alluded to this one earlier. This person understands what their role is going to be. They're managing the budget. They're tracking everything that's happening. Generally, it's tracked separately because it's going to potentially it could have to go off for to your cyber insurance agent for compensation back. They basically are keeping track of everything that's happening, every expenditure that's going on as you move through all the remediation. So it's really important that everything funnels in through that financial officer, so you can get compensated for all of the expenses that are incurred. The next one is a business lead role. So this role is really working with the various parts of the business to make sure that if there's things that can be going on, there's a business continuity lead role too. I'll get to that in a minute. But the business lead role is kind of stepping in and saying, okay, they may be working with the negotiator and the finance officer and the incident response manager, but there's impacts to the business that then might need to be communicated out to the business. Managers might need to be brought together for certain decisions. So they're kind of a coordinator role on the, like with those business leaders, with the managers and supervisors who are kind of still either trying to operate or, would like to be operating or might be able to launch their business continuity, but they're interfacing with various roles, and how you have them placed in the team is going to depend on the org structure that you create, but it's a role that really is interfacing with those managers and supervisors and making sure they're kept up to date on all the things that are happening and where there's key decisions that need to be made and bringing those decisions back to the incident response team to address as needed. The communications lead role, now you can leverage this role in a couple of different ways. Ultimately, what you really want from this role is to help you develop that communications plan, right? So really help think through all those audiences that we talked about, who's going to be addressing them, what channel is going to be used to address the various audiences, helping to get those set up within the organization. And also, if you can, you want to have this communications lead role create your templates for communications in advance. Okay, so having them created in advance and then just modifying them based on the specifics of whatever your cyber event is in the moment. Again, after the event happens is not the time to be sitting down and writing critical, thoughtful, empathetic copy. You don't want to be doing that at that point. Nobody's brain is in that space. So the more that you can have those things in place. We saw a couple of events this year. We saw FCL, we saw London Drugs. I do recommend that you go and look at the social media posts that were made by those organizations. They followed a very specific formula in terms of how they structured their communication. Leverage that, right? Leverage it. Put your templates together so you can just pull them out and adjust the specifics as needed based on the type of event and or who you're communicating with, but you already kind of have those pre-packaged. The other way that you can leverage this role is that communications lead may also, or the incident response coordinator, can go either way. Somebody needs to make sure that these people who've been designated to make these communications are actually doing it. Did we have our daily staff update via conference call? Did we communicate out to our lawyer with an update, a daily update? Did we communicate? So somebody who's making sure that all of the communications that you've committed to in your communications plan are actually happening. That's a task-oriented piece that can be done by the incident response coordinator, can be done by the communications lead, depends on who has the bandwidth to get it done. The human resource lead, also a key role, because you're going to have staff who are going to be like, what am I doing? Like you may send all your staff home, right? If they're home, they're going to want to know, am I getting paid? Like, is there something I can be doing? What am I supposed to be doing now? Right? So staff are going to have those questions. They're going to need to have a place to send those questions. So all of that should be going and forwarded to the HR lead. That should be included in that staff communications template. However you decide to structure where staff will go for questions, but we recommend having that HR lead embedded in the team so that they can bring those issues forward as well, because they may not have the answers to some of the questions that staff might bring forward from an HR point of view. Business continuity lead role. This person is very active throughout, the year, like they're active all the time, working with different division leaders or managers to build continuity plans, right? So they're kind of working through that. And as a plan is created, it should be added to the back of the playbook. So I've got a tab back here at the very back, and that's for business continuity plans. So when the team meets, they know, okay, are we ready for this business continuity plan? Are we ready to execute? Who's owning it? Okay, good. You're assigned. Go make it happen. So that business continuity lead role, working with managers or division leaders on the regular basis to put together the business continuity plans. And then following an event, they're then saying, okay, they're working to make sure that those plans are being executed as the plan defines. So that's what their role is in the incident response team. We're getting close to question time. All right. So things you can start doing today, and I've given you a lot already. So hopefully you're taking notes, or you're going to come back and go through this, because there's a lot of stuff that you can do right now based on what we've already shared. So things you can start doing today to increase your cyber resilience and event readiness. Cyber education and awareness is huge. This is huge. That human element is a huge risk factor for every organization. We want to make sure that people are being educated, that there is awareness. You're running phishing campaigns, whatever else that it is that you can do to keep it in people's mind all the time. When you've got 76 people percent of people who've taken a risky action and 98% of them knew they were doing it, that's a problem. That's a problem. They need to understand. And it's not until they really understand, hey, oh my gosh, the whole company is down, and that was me. I clicked that link. If they had that moment and I really understood the impact of that moment, I think they'd be a little bit more thoughtful. But they don't necessarily make that correlation. So it's really important for us to make sure that we're educating people on what the potential impacts could be, so that they don't find themselves in that position. Nobody wants to be in that position. So subscription services, such as KnowBe4, I know we use those. Lunch and learns, email communications. There's all kinds of ways that we can communicate out, but making sure that we're doing that regularly. All right, Maria, we're going to do another poll here. So we are wanting to know quickly, does your organization enforce a password and MFA policy? And there's going to be a couple options on here. So you can say, yes, we have password policy. Yes, we have MFA policy, or we have both. And no, I didn't set it up properly. That's on me. Sorry, Maria. Okay, so just say yes or no if you have either one of them. Either one of them. That's totally my fault. I own that one. My apologies. Okay, does your organization enforce a password and MFA policy? Yes or no? So if you do either one, say yes. If you do either one, say yes. Great. Good, good, good. Hopefully it's both. Fingers crossed. MFA is super, super important. The password policy. And then, the big piece is, thank you, by the way, for everybody who's responding here. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Okay. So in terms of the MFA and password policy, you're going to want to make sure not only do you have the policy in place, but are you enforcing it? So have you educated people on what a strong password is? Are you providing a password tool to your staff to make it easy for them to remember? Otherwise, they're just cycling through the same 5 passwords. Are you auditing passwords regularly, right? To make sure that people don't have like 3-character passwords or super simple passwords that can be broken very, very quickly. So putting that audit piece in place, if you can, do a password management tool, that's ideal. Otherwise, it's very hard for people to remember all their passwords. And then training on making sure that people understand strong password composition if you don't have a password management tool in place, which would already help you with that. Enforcing MFA, right? So making sure it's set up on as many systems as you can possibly set it up on. Yes, it takes that additional 2 or 3 seconds. I know I do them all the time because we have MFA set up. Net of it is, I have zero issue. And this is a key piece. Leadership, as a general proposition, tends to be the ones that are most reluctant to take that extra couple of seconds to confirm themselves on MFA. So when they are like, oh, this MFA is so frustrating, I don't want it, and they're making those comments, people hear that. And so they are going to have the same response to it. Leadership needs to take a role in saying, hey, you know what? And I know I do this with my team. I'm like, yeah, hold on, I got to do my MFA for a second. I do my MFA. Why? Because I don't want to be the person who created the event. And if it means 2 or 3 seconds of my time to confirm that I am the person who's trying to get access to our systems, I am all over that, right? So as a leader, I take that very, very seriously in making sure that I'm setting the tone for MFA and that it's an important part of our security resilience within the organization. Start building a cyber playbook today. It doesn't have to be our playbook. Just start building something. I've given you a lot of meat today that you can start to put into building a playbook. Just put something together. Just get it started, and let's make sure that we can. Your organization has something to work with in the case of an incident, so you're able to respond quickly and effectively. All right, Maria. Last poll. So this is going to be another word cloud one like we did before. So quick question, great comments when we started on why you decided to join. Just want to get your comments now on how you're feeling after all of this information. How are you feeling now? Just chuck that into the poll when you have a second. Booyah! I love it. Confident. I'm hoping that's somebody that has a playbook in place now, and based on all this information, they've already done this, which is awesome. That's what we want. That's what we're passionate about, is making sure businesses are not going to be devastated if something were to happen. Overwhelmed, absolutely. I get it, especially if you haven't. Prepared, awesome. I'm going to give a virtual high five. So people have done this work. I love it. Curious, capable, excited, on track. I love it. This is great. I'm so excited by this. Yay. Awesome. Encouraged. Yeah. So that's telling me that you guys are already started on this, right? And that's really what we're wanting, is to make sure that companies are ready if something were to happen. So I love seeing these comments. That is amazing. Thank you so much. All right. So let's move on to the Q&A.